Hey, what is up, Bills Mafia? Welcome in to this episode of the Buffalo Nerd, brought to you by SB Nation on the Buffalo Rumblings podcast network and YouTube channel. This week, we're joined by Jarrett Bailey, covers the NFL on a multitude of platforms. He's the host of the Pump Fake Pod and the No Notes Pod. We're going to go into deep dive into the Super Bowl odds and what we can expect this week and this year in the AFC East.
It's about to go down. This is the Buffalo Nerd Sports Podcast, where we talk history of the game, numbers, and stats. And each week we highlight a charity that's doing good. If you haven't subscribed yet, then you should, because I'm this the real deal. And you know I gotta shout out the Buffalo Bills. Turn it up to the max, sit back and relax. This the Buffalo Nerd Sports Podcast. Let go.
Well, welcome in, everybody, to this week's show. I'm pretty excited about this one because during the offseason, you hit this kind of lull where, it's not a lot happening. It's OTAs. Everybody's mad. Everything's happening. This guy's going to sign here. This isn't going to happen. So we're all over the place. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to hang out with Jarrett Bailey. So Jarrett Bailey covers the NFL on a multitude of different platforms. He does a couple different podcasts. But what we're really going to use today is the NFL betting kind of side of things. I want to look at some Super Bowl odds. The Bills have been getting hammered apparently at the books as the kind of top dog. So before we get into all that, Jarrett, what's up, man? Welcome in.
I don't know who you guys have to make these intros, but send them my way. Goodness, that of all the shows I've done, that was like the most fun intro so that was awesome, by the way. I'm doing good, man. This is exciting. Thanks for the invite. I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to praising the name of the Buffalo Bills for the next little bit. So this will be fun.
I love it. So why don't you kind of just give people a little quick brief intro, kind of a little bit of what you're about, what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it a little bit. I cover the league for a multitude of Sports Illustrated sites. The 33rd team, which is ran by former GM Mike Tannenbaum. And then fan-sided as well, USA Today. I'm everywhere. So if you want to read my stuff, I host two podcasts too, the Pump Fake podcast and a new podcast, which I'll get into more at the end. It's called No Notes. Premise of it is just I interview people without doing any research on them. It's just people talking for a little bit. So I'm excited about that. That'll be launching here in the next week on Believe Podcast. So yeah, if you want any of my stuff, follow me on Twitter. I post everything there, and you get my link tree as well. It's in my Twitter bio.
Yeah, so that I was going to bring that up too because I think that's a cool concept. Just it's like two people meeting in front of everybody else, right? Like watching kind of live. So that's a cool concept. I really enjoy that. So like we do every week on the show, before we do get into all the football stuff, we are going to highlight a charity off the top. As the guest, Jarrett does choose the charity for the week. So this week, Jarrett chose the Ronald McDonald Charities. So why don't you go ahead, Jarrett, and just kind of tell us a little bit about why you chose them.
Yeah, Ronald McDonald House in Pittsburgh, it just provides a way for families to stay close to their children who are receiving medical care. They're committed to helping families, lead happier, healthier, and more productive lives. It's a really good charity in the city of Pittsburgh. Cameron Hayward has been a big spokesperson for as long as I can remember. So just a really good cause that helps kids and families throughout the city.
Yeah, I mean, and the cool thing about the Ronald McDonald House, I think most people are familiar with them, right? They're in a lot of different, you can find one in every city, right? So it's very cool. And, and Jarrett, he's in Pittsburgh, right? So don't hate right away, Bills Mafia. I mean, relax and give him a second here, but so he's in Pittsburgh. So there's local organizations everywhere. There's one in Buffalo. There's one here in Sacramento where I'm at. So it's very cool. Real quick also too, as we're highlighting charities and just kind of the things that were taking place, I did want to make sure that everybody that isn't aware yet or hasn't seen it yet, if you are in the city this week, Saturday, June 11th, 10:30 to noon, they're doing the March for Our Lives in Buffalo, just for after what took place there, the terrible happenings in the past couple of weeks, the community's coming together and they're going to be coming together and doing a march starting it looks like Jefferson and Glenwood and finishing at Jefferson and Riley Street. So if you guys are in the community and you're looking for something to do this weekend, there you go. So let's start out by chatting about the Super Bowl odds a little bit, because I think this time of the year and when Vegas puts out these numbers, there's not a lot that's happened yet. Like a lot of people, there's no injuries. We're not seeing a lot of different movement, right? So I feel like the Vegas, who I take seriously, is they know what they're doing, right? They're basing this on what they truly believe. right? The Bills are getting hammered. So the Bills are the top dog at plus 600. Nobody really close in the AFC. You got to go all the way back to the Chiefs at 1,000. So that tells me Vegas thinks the Bills are hot and heavy. What do you think about the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, I mean, to me right now, they're the best team in football on paper. The fact that you look, there's not really any holes on the roster. If there's one hole you want to point at, it's maybe the lack of a star running back. But even then, like last year, Devin Singletary became a big part of their passing offense down the stretch. And they have a really complete running back by committee room. So if that's the only hole that you can really poke at with Buffalo, I mean, they add Von Miller to an already really good defense, Tre'Davious White. They drafted the cornerback out of, his name is escaping me at the moment.
Elam.
Yeah. So the best safety duo in the NFL with Michael Hyde, Jordan Poyer. Really good front seven. And then, yes, they lose Cole Beasley, but then they replace him with Jameson Crowder, who, I mean, is younger. You can make an argument Jameson Crowder is probably just a top 5 pure slot guy when he's completely healthy in the NFL. He missed a good portion of last year with the Jets due to injury, but when he's healthy, I mean, he's very good. He's really good in Washington, and then made some happenings with the Jets. So I think when it comes down to it, there's a reason why Vegas is so high on Buffalo. It's because Josh Allen keeps getting better. Not to mention the fact that guys like Gabe Davis have emerged as important contributors. Dawson Knox has gotten better each season as a top 10 tight end in the league. Their offensive line has improved. So overall, there's not really many holes with Buffalo. They play in a division where they can rattle off wins. Like they've owned the Dolphins haven't beaten Buffalo, Colt, since 2018.
Yep.
They've owned Miami. I think New England's going to take a big step back this year. I like the Jets, what they've done in the offseason. I still think they're probably at least a year away from being like a wild card contender. I think they'll be one of those fun teams that are like competitive, but will finish with like 6 wins, but it'll be a tough out every Sunday. I don't think that they're going to beat the Jets this year. So yeah, if you're Buffalo, I mean, I don't see more than one loss within the division. And then you look at the rest of their schedule. I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if you would pull it up, but overall, this is a 12-win team minimum. I think it wouldn't shock me to see them go 13-4. Josh Allen could be this year's MVP. That wouldn't shock me either. I mean, he just keeps getting better. If there's a time for Buffalo to win, it's now, because as good as they are also maybe the team with the most pressure on them in the NFL this season. So I think that there's a reason why Vegas has them so high. It's because they are very good. But with that comes, you got to back this up. There is a lot of pressure on Buffalo too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I agree with a ton of that. And I absolutely, for me, when it comes down to it though, so if I were to give you just and say, hey, Jarrett, take your money and go pick, is Buffalo a team that you would really put your money on? Because you're getting the least amount of value, right, as the favorite, right? So you get the least amount of value, and you're putting it in what a people all across the planet think is a top contender, right?
Right.
But it's one of those things, right, where it's like, is it worth it? As much as you love to do them. But I agree. Sure. The Bills on paper 100% look like a phenomenal team. Front half of the schedule has got some things that could take place division-wise. I think we're going to be okay. I agree. So part of this, though, for me is I want to see outside of where you are with everybody else. So the Chiefs kind of come in as like the next AFC team that everybody's there. Right. I personally thought that what they did on the back end by losing their safety duos, I like the cornerback that they were able to get, but the defense doesn't feel that great to me. You lost Tyreek. You make some changes. Are the Chiefs really still the number 2 team? And would you be interested in putting any kind of wager on that?
My mentor and my good friend Matt Verderam from Fansided, he's a big Chiefs fan, and he'll tell me to high heavens that nobody wants to go to Arrowhead in January. They'll be fine. And look, they very well, I agree. Nobody wants to go to Arrowhead in January. I get it. But to me, this feels like a gap year for the Chiefs. Like, look at who their receivers are. To go from having Tyreek Hill to now you're going to be relying on Juju Smith-Schuster, who I think is just going to be their underneath guy. That's what he was in Pittsburgh, and he's fantastic at it. Like, he'll catch, a 6-yard pass and turn it to a 12-yard gain because he's great at getting yards after contact. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore. Like, I understand Mahomes is fantastic, but having Tyreek not there anymore to just run past everybody, that's going to show. I think, like I said, Mahomes is still going to be great. They still have Kelsey, Andy Reid, and Bieniemy, and the whole core is still there. So, but not having Tyreek there will hurt. And then defensively, like Tyrann Mathieu isn't there anymore. And I understand not wanting to give him another big contract as he's, getting to the back nine of his career. So I get that. They bring in Justin Reed from Houston. That's a good safety to have there. But I mean, they also lose Travarius Ward to San Francisco. So this is a very different Chiefs team than what it has been and what we've grown accustomed to in previous seasons. So do I think they're a playoff team? Yes. Do I think that this is a team that I would bet on making the Super Bowl? No.
Yeah, and I think the what I found interesting about them being right there is kind of the next couple teams in the line that are right around there are the Chargers and the Broncos, right? Who are both in their division, right? So like, how are all three of these teams supposedly like right there equivalent as it? So it's going to be so tight. It's hard to believe that the Chiefs are still that team. But now let's shift over to the Chargers. They've been proving, Herbert's going to grow. The team is really, really good. I think they have a lot of good pieces in the right places. Their defense has been a little bit of an Achilles heel at times for them, but I like what they're doing overall, and I think they're ascending. While you've just kind of mentioned you feel the Chiefs might be dipping a little bit as well. Where are you at with the Chargers?
I feel like we do this every year with the Chargers, where we drink the Chargers Kool-Aid in the offseason. We praise how good they look on paper. Like, oh my goodness, look what they did. They just traded for Khalil Mack. They signed J.C. Jackson, and then somehow they get in their own way and win 9 games. It seems like the Chargers, more than any team in the league, get in their own way. And I praise Brandon Staley for being aggressive at times, but there are times where he does it too much, and it's come back to bite him in the butt. So I'm going to keep drinking the Kool-Aid because it's hard not to with all the moves they've made. You look at their roster, it is easily a top 5, top 3 roster in the league right now. Their rush defense was putrid last year. I think they had the second worst rush defense in the NFL last year. So that was kind of their big Achilles heel. But when they're healthy, man, I mean, Derwin James is fantastic. Bosa, you bring in Mack, who, for as good as he was when he first showed up in Chicago, I mean, he's had trouble staying on the field and maintaining that same production. Hopefully being across from Joey Bosa kind of reignites some sort of flame in him and he can pick up that production. But it's not just him. I mean, they've had guys like Nasir Adderley who became, vital parts of the defense. They've got a lot of guys on that side of the ball. Asante Samuel as well. So it's a good defense. And then offensively, they get back Mike Williams, who a lot of people didn't expect for him to come back. They thought that he would sign a big deal elsewhere. Keenan Allen, who you can make the argument is one of the more underrated receivers in football. Austin Eckler's fantastic.
Yep.
So the Chargers, I'm going to keep drinking the Kool-Aid because eventually it's got to come together, right? Like, my goodness. And Herbert just keeps getting better somehow. He's already, one of the elite quarterbacks in this game. And he's only going into his 3rd year. So I'm excited to see what they do. I hope that they can finally put the pieces together and make it a playoff appearance, because if they get hot at the end of the year and go into the wild card and play some team like Tennessee, I could see them doing that. Like, if they play the winner of the AFC South in the wild card route, I could see them winning that game by 30, just going off. So I'm going to keep drinking the Chargers Kool-Aid, and I hope I don't regret it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, and I think the Khalil Mack thing I think it's a huge boost for them, because it's, even as a superstar, it's hard to play for a team that's not competing. Right. Like, I mean, when you're in Chicago and just nothing is happening, Nagy's just terrible. The writing's on the wall. It's like, this is just, and then there's going to be a shuffle. So I think he's going to come in and be the player that everybody really thought that he was, and it's going to really help that defense out. So the next one, though, that everyone's loving, right, and they're getting all the praise because Russell Wilson's just going to turn it all around in Denver. They have a great wide receiver trio. They have good running backs. I think they're a very competitive football team, but are you buying that Russell Wilson still has enough to take this type of team to the next level, especially with who he has to play?
Yeah, I think Denver's going to be in the mix. I think they'll be a playoff team. I think it's going to come down really to them in Los Angeles in terms of who wins the division. Like, I could be lower on the Chiefs than many. I still think that the Chiefs are probably a 10-win team, and it wouldn't shock me if Denver and the Chargers both win 10 or 11. So they're going to poach off each other, and I think the odd man out is going to end up being Vegas. But no, Russell Wilson, I think he's going to come in feeling reinvigorated, kind of like a fresh start, new sense of life almost. And you look at the guys that he has at his disposal. I mean, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler. Like, those are 4 guys that are maybe I'm trying to think at the top of my head if there's a better top 4 just in terms of depth and receivers because they go 4 deep. But they dealt with injuries last year. Hamler got hurt. Sutton has dealt with injuries in the past. So I think for all of those guys, having a quarterback not named Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, or whoever the hell is also throwing passes for them in the past few years, like Case Keenum or whoever they've had as week 1 starters, I think will be good for them as well. So yeah, when you bring in a future Hall of Famer like Russell Wilson, you look at what their defense has too. I mean, Justin Simmons is one of the best safeties in football. Their secondary, though, a lot of people are a little bit concerned about their secondary in terms of their corners. Like Patrick Surtain is very good, but they don't have a lot of depth behind him. Bradley Chubb is really good, but he's always hurt. So there is a lot of caveats that come with Denver. I don't know, man. Something about it, though, I feel like the fact that Denver has fallen up into 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks also kind of pisses me off, by the way. So I'm looking forward to seeing them. I think they're going to be very fun to watch. Do I think they're going to be as good as, the year where Manning threw 55 touchdowns? No. But I think that this is going to be a team that is it's going to be a hard division, obviously. Like that is the most stacked. You can make the argument that's the most stacked division in NFL history. Like that is ungodly what that gauntlet that all 4 of them are going to have to try to run. But I think Denver's going to be right in the mix. I think they'll be a playoff team. And then it just kind of depends on, the hand that they're dealt when that time comes. But I do like Denver this year. I think Russell Wilson does, step right in and play well. Their offensive line got a lot better last year too. Garrett Bowles has turned his career around, which is good for them. So are they a perfect team? No. I mean, there's definite holes, but there's a lot of things that a Hall of Fame quarterback can mask.
Right. And when you brought up that they've done it before, I was just getting ready to hit on to the last time they tried this, it worked. Yeah. Right. So you almost have to buy into it a little bit because
I applaud John Elway and George Patton acknowledging that they suck at drafting quarterbacks and just saying, let's just go get another one. We can't do this.
As soon as somebody will give us theirs, let's just take them. Yeah. Right. That's the new game plan. Mm-hmm. So the next couple I find interesting, and I think the Browns are at 1,800, right? They're at plus 1,800, and to me, this only feels like this is based off of Deshaun Watson playing, and I don't think Deshaun Watson is ever going to play. Do you see it any differently? Do you think this number sticks with the current roster if it's just Baker Mayfield, or he even says no thanks and they have to bring in somebody else?
Before all of the happenings of the past few days, I would have said, okay, they'll suspend him for half the season. 8 games or whatever, he'll come back. Now, if he plays at all this year, that's a horrible look for the NFL. They cannot let him play. So for Cleveland, I'm completely out on the Browns because who's it going to be? Is it going to be Baker? I don't think it's going to be Baker. I think Baker is perfectly fine going somewhere else and just kind of having a rehab year, even if it's as a backup, or just wait a little bit if a quarterback gets hurt. Every year there's going to be a guy, and we don't knock on wood, I don't want anybody to get hurt, but there's going to be somebody who goes down. And they're going to look around and say, hey, Baker can keep us above water. Let's trade for Baker Mayfield. So if I had to bet on who it's going to be, it might be Jacoby Brissett, who's going to be the guy taking the snaps in Cleveland. So I'm completely out on the Browns. Even if Deshaun Watson does play, that's so much noise going on there that I just don't think it's going to work. So I'm very much out on the Browns. What do you say? They're 1,800?
Yeah, plus 1,800.
Goodness. I would imagine those get adjusted or they just get taken off the board here very shortly because eventually that other shoe is going to drop. Mike Tanier actually said on Stacking the Box the other day that they're probably just going to wait till 4th of July weekend when everybody's just having fun with their families. Right. He's oh yeah, by the way, we're suspending Deshaun Watson. Just so nobody, they're going to try to do it at a time where the least amount of people as possible care at that very moment. That way it just kind of flies under the radar. But I do think that other shoe will drop sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and the other thing I found interesting about it is behind that you got plus 2,000 at the Bengals, right? And so this is the team that was just in the Super Bowl, right? Yeah. And they're behind the Browns all of a sudden, and I'm like, okay, I'm confused, right? But that threw me off. And then the one that I actually kind of am intrigued about is that plus 22 is the Colts. I do believe that they're a football team that they're missing things, but they're also a team that if you get in the playoffs against them, they're capable of they're beating you at the right moment, right? So that's kind of one of the outliers. If you had to take one outlier, AFC, NFC, who gets your money today?
If I had to take just a flyer on a team, first of all, the Bengals being that low is outrageous.
That's what
we talk about that for a second. What the hell is that? The Bengals
what happened to them, right? What happened?
They got better.
Right. So they go way down the board, right? I was confused. I'm like, why are they down there?
I think a lot of people were drinking the Deshaun Watson Kool-Aid, and that's understandable. But they look at what Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase did last year when Joe Burrow was running for his life. Yeah. This offseason, they built a brick wall in front of Joe Burrow with all their offensive lineman signings. Imagine what he can do with time. In terms of dark horse MVP bets, I don't know what Joe Burrow's odds are, but I bet that they're pretty solid where you could probably take a flyer on his MVP odds. If there's a team in each conference that I would take as flyers, oh man, I'm going to get so much hate for this. In the NFC, I've been very, very bullish on the Washington Commanders this offseason.
Okay.
And I'm known as the guy on Twitter who just loves Carson Wentz and will back Carson Wentz till there is no reason to back him anymore. But everybody wants to point to the Jacksonville game last year in Week 18, but he played bad. He played very poorly, and they lost. But you know who else played?
Yeah, sure.
You know who else played poorly against Jacksonville though? Josh Allen. Josh Allen played horrible. He played worse, maybe not worse than Carson Wentz, but they put up 6 points against Jacksonville in Jacksonville. So, and Justin Herbert played horrible against the Texans. There's a reason that they play the games. Anybody can beat anybody any given Sunday. Exactly. So I think that judging him based off of a Week 18 performance when he played fantastic against Tampa Bay in a game that they very well could have won, played fantastic against the Titans, a game in which the defense kind of blew for him. The game against Baltimore on Monday night, everybody talks about Lamar Jackson's performance, which, by the way, was fantastic. Carson Wentz played the best game of his life and threw for over 400 yards that day, and nobody talks about it because their defense blew a 23-point lead, and nobody talks about how great Carson Wentz played that day. He had 27 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Washington won 7 games last year without Chase Young and with Taylor Heineke. No disrespect to Taylor Heineke. He's proven himself as, a high-end backup in this league, but that's a big upgrade that they're getting at quarterback. They drafted Jahan Dotson. Their defense is their front 7, man. Payne, Sweat, Allen, Young. They have Fuller and Jackson at the corners. If Cole Holcomb can keep taking steps forward at linebacker, this is a team that both sides of the ball, I like them a lot. Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, who they signed from Carolina last year. He only played 1 game because of injury. I like Washington. I think they'll win the NFC East. They might be able to win a playoff game, but this could be one of those seasons where they just ride a magic carpet and somehow get there. I don't think they're going to, but if I had to take a flyer on a team, they would be one of them just because, I like Carson Wentz, and I think that it would be really fun. More than anything, I would love one of the games I'm looking forward to most this year is when Washington goes to Philadelphia. I want the Commanders to win by 90. And Carson wants just to run around Lincoln Financial, go to the 50-yard line and just do a quick spin thing like they do in figure skating with his middle fingers in the air. Just, you wanted me out, and there you go. So I'm hopeful about the Commanders this year.
Yeah, I'm in that boat with the Colts a little bit because I think Matt Ryan is capable of being behind a line that can stand there all day and block, and he's got a wonderful running back, so that would be kind of my flyer.
That's one that I'm iffy on because, as quick as they were to run Carson Wentz out of the building, are we sure that bringing in, 800-year-old Matt Ryan is going to be the end? Now, look, Matt Ryan has been on some god-awful Falcons team these past few years, and he has done everything he can to keep them relevant, and I hope that they're successful. I think they'll win that division. I'm not a big Ryan Tannehill guy. I don't think Mike Vrabel's a big Ryan Tannehill guy anymore. I think
I don't think anything's happening in Tennessee that's positive right now, really.
I think I'm going to keep an eye on that whole Malik Willis thing because it would not shock me at all if he's starting at some point this year. Yeah. The fact that they don't have A.J. Brown anymore, that offense is going to be Derrick Henry or bust. Great, you drafted Treylon Burks. He's not A.J. Brown. So good luck to you, Tennessee. So Indy's an interesting one. I don't know if I would be confident. I love Frank Reich. Their defense is quietly very good, and Jonathan Taylor's fantastic. I just have a hard time betting on a team whose number 1 receiver is Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's good, but they need more.
Yeah, definitely. So real quick here, I want to shift over a little bit and hit the AFC East because obviously I think you've pretty much the way you're talking, the belief is that the Bills will be the team, right? They're probably going to win the AFC East. They got them at 11.5 wins. If I'm giving you a choice, are you going over that or below that?
Oh, I'm hammering the over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's over. I think I have to pull it up real quick. Actually, I will. I do 2 of these every year. I started this last year, so I'm making it kind of an annual thing where the day of the schedule release, once the draft and free agency has already happened, I'll do game by game predictions then. And then I do one after the final week of the preseason as like my final one. So for the first one, I want to say I had them winning 13 when I went game by game.
Yeah.
There I go. Yeah, 13-4 is what I have them at as of right now. So I would hammer the over there. And again, I would have to go back and look at their schedule just to get a full grasp of it. But I already pointed out everything about them. They're as close to a perfect team as you can get right now on paper. There's not a lot of holes. Their division's going to be at least 5 wins. I don't think Miami's going to beat them. I don't think New England's beating them. For some reason, the one that comes back to me is the Jets, because for some reason the Jets have given them fits a few times in the past few years. Like that 18-12 game a few years ago, remember that? I think it was 2020 or 2019, where somehow they only put up, was it 6 field goals, or did they score touchdowns?
Yeah, it's always the division, right? You can't never count out the division, no matter what's taking place, who's doing what. It's still the division. Something crazy or stupid can always happen in division, for sure. So let me ask you then. So we got Bills at 1. If you're picking who takes second in the division this year, who do you take? And then I'll tell you what their total is.
I did this last year, and I might have been a year early. I might take the Jets.
I actually am on the same boat as you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be stunned because Miami's done a ton. I get it. And it should work, right? It should work. Everything they've done should work, but it's still Tua. And for some reason, I just feel like Zach Wilson and the younger guys extending up there are just in the defensive minded. Like, I just feel like something's funky is going to happen. So if you say the Jets, their total is 5.5.
I would say over 5.5 for the Jets. I think they'll get to at least 6.
I have that feeling myself too. I feel like they're a 6 or 7 team. They're going to win 6 or 7 games somehow, some way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, they're not going to be a playoff team, but they'll be that fun team that everybody enjoys watching because Zach Wilson's just going to say to hell with it. Elijah Moore's down there somewhere. Let's just let it fly. And he'll have games where he'll like go for like 323, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and they'll lose like 37-30, but it'll be a fun game to watch. So I think Zach Wilson's going to take a big step forward. I love what they've done offensively for him. Defensively, there's still stuff to fill in, but Saleh, I think, has proven to be, at least so far, I mean, it's only 1 year, but he's proven to be a good hire. So yeah, I like the Jets this year. And again, I'm going to quote Matt Verderame a lot here, but every time I try to tell him that the Jets are going to be good, he'll just go on a tirade and just say, it's still the Jets. Nothing's going to happen. He's not a Zach Wilson guy. It is what it is. But I'm buying into the fact that Zach Wilson's going to have a very progressive second year, and I like what I see from them. So yeah, the Jets at 6 wins feels good. 7 wins if everything goes well. As a matter of fact, in the first iteration of this, I had them going 7-10. So
yep. Okay. Yeah, so I'm in the same boat. So David Reed popped in. He said Miami. So if we're leaving the other 2, who finishes at the bottom half? Who's out?
I feel like it might be a tie. As good as everybody wants to point out Belichick, he's good enough for however many ones. Well, a few years ago, they went 7-9. So it's not as if Bill Belichick is going to just keep accounting for teams going to the playoffs. And he's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. He's the greatest coach of all time. However, all good things come to an end eventually. They're going to have Matt Patricia calling plays this year, Colt. Matt Patricia.
Yeah, I don't get it. Yeah,
some combination of him, Joe Judge, and Bill Belichick are going to be the play callers. And look, Josh McDaniels, I think it gets a little bit overrated too because he had Brady for a long time. And then when Brady left, we kind of saw what McDaniels was, which is just kind of an offensive coordinator.
Yep, I agree.
So having Mac Jones getting play calls from Matt Patricia, throwing to you and I at receiver,
I know.
Handing off to whoever made your background graphic here. Like, there's nobody on offense for them whatsoever. Ramondre Stevenson, I'm supposed to lose my mind for him. Plus, their defense is old. They're not very good on paper whatsoever. Belichick will get them like a few games that they shouldn't win. I don't see them winning more than 7 games this year.
Yeah, I feel like this is the year they fall. And so both Miami and New England are 8.5. And
both of them are hit. I would bet I don't have a mortgage, but if I had a mortgage, I would bet it on the under.
Yeah, I'm 100% on the under on New England. I think this is like a 5-win season if they don't pay attention to what's taking place over there. And everything you're hearing from out of the gate is nobody wants anything to do with the offense, right? Like it's all terrible before we even got started. And Belichick's great and all, and we can agree with that, but we've seen him be bad too. It was a long time ago, but he had a Hall of Fame quarterback in between, right? So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But
I think there's a very good chance we've already seen like the peak of Mac Jones. I think that's kind of what he is just, okay, he's accurate. He doesn't test defenses downfield. He'll make sound decisions. He's not going to win games for you with his arm. He's just kind of like a Jimmy Garoppolo at best guy, Case Keenum at worst. Like he's got a high floor but a very low ceiling. I think that he's going to end up being kind of like
in Detroit last year. Right?
I feel like that's a good way of putting it. I feel like
that's what's going to happen, right? Like we're going to watch that offense.
Like a Jared Goff, like almost, I feel like he's less athletic Mitch Trubisky, where he's just kind of what he is, you know? So, yeah, I'm not high on New England whatsoever. And like you said, nobody wants any part of that offense because who the hell's there?
Yeah. I mean, well, they brought in last year, they brought in two of the best tight ends in the league, and they both disappeared, right? So it was like, what the heck's going on?
Yeah, Hunter Henry was good for like 4 catches a game, and he would get a touchdown, but like, I don't know, man. Like their receiving room is arguably like between them and Baltimore, the worst in the NFL. It is awful. Like I get they brought in Devontae Parker. He's a really solid number 2. Devontae Parker is not a number 1 in this league. Jacoby Myers, like I'm not going crazy about anybody that they have on offense.
Yeah, I agree. So we're up against it here on the time, but I want to ask you one last thing because this has kind of been a hot topic. I've been seeing it go both ways. So you're the Buffalo Bills. This season, you get to watch Dawson Knox and Edmonds both have knock out of the park seasons. You have to pay both of them next season. Who gets your money?
Edmonds. Edmonds
is getting the
money. Yeah, because like, look, tight ends in this league, I feel like are becoming. Outside of the top 5, all of them at some point or another, you can just kind of take one. It's like kind of like fantasy football quarterbacks. Like, okay, outside of like, you know, the big 5, you have a quarterback, you're pretty set. I like Dawson Knox. I do. I think the improvement that he has shown in stereo with Allen in these past few years is great. I would not pay him before I paid Edmonds. So is it, by the way, what is up with Bills fans just hating Tremaine Edmonds? I don't understand this concept. I love Tremaine Edmonds.
It's not, and I'm on the fence of he's a great player, but he has not really pushed it to the next level, I don't think yet. And I think that's really kind of only the hang up, right? When you think of some of these other big time linebackers, you see them flash a ton, right? And he hasn't had that flash really yet. And I said this premise if they both had their best seasons, right? If Edmonds were to have a season similar to last year, Knox excels to another top type of season again for a tight end. I'm a little more on the Knox side of things because I think our defense is stout enough to fit a linebacker piece into what we've been building. And I like seeing that long-term, like the Gronk Brady, you know, the Mahomes and Kelsey, you know, like some of that really works. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. That Mafia is all over the place. Get rid of Knox, and keep Poyer over both. Like it's getting crazy, right? But it's what the offseason's all about.
Yeah, and Buffalo's financial situation is going to be interesting over these next few years because they've still got to pay. I mean, I don't think they're going to pay Jordan Poyer.
Yeah, I haven't been on that.
Just because, you know, Hyde's already there. They're going to have to eventually pay Tre'Davious White again. There's so many things they're going to have to go into it. Allen's contract is going to eat up a lot of that cap space. So that's what I'm saying. You know, it's kind of it's not now or never per se, but there's a lot of pressure on them this year.
Yeah, I agree, and that's kind of where I've been. It's going to be very interesting to see because you need some guys to take some discounts, and then you're really going to have to hit it right on some of the other pieces, right? You know, that's how it goes. So, all right, so we're up against it. That's going to do it for this show this week. I really want to thank Jarrett for coming on and hanging out. I hit him up last minute, and I was like, "Hey, man, I see you do like 1,000 shows. You probably have no time, but you want to come and do another one?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So, Jarrett, why don't you go ahead and shout out where everybody can find you and anything you got coming up?
Yeah, anything that I do, I'll post on Twitter at JBaileyNFL, so follow me there. Article for the 33rd team, which actually fits into this because I talked about why the Dolphins are going to be kind of taking a step back this year. So go read that. Stuff for actually the Bills on Sports Illustrated, 49ers stuff, Steelers stuff, just kind of all over the place. USA Today stuff, which will be coming soon. And then latest edition of the Pump Fake will go up. I talked about that whole PFF top 10 coaches thing. I did my own list, dove into a little bit more Miami stuff because I kind of went in conjunction with the piece that I had released. And then, yeah, no notes. I'm really looking forward to that. Grateful to everybody at Believe who, you know, I pitched the idea and they said, yeah, that sounds awesome. By all means, run with it. So the first episode will be with Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com. If you're a wrestling fan, you know who Sean Ross Sapp is. He's arguably the biggest name in wrestling media right now. So I'm looking forward to that. That will release at some point, probably next week. If not next week, the week after. We'll be recording it next week. And then episode 2 is also in the works. I'm not going to quite announce it yet because it's not like official, but it's pretty close to being official. So I'll tweet that out when it happens. But yeah, no research, no notes. It's just people talking, kind of getting to know one another. And I'm really looking forward to that. So the Pump Fake Pod, no notes, both of which are on Believe. So go follow us as well. And like I said, all of that can be found following me on Twitter at JBaileyNFL.
So you do just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit NFL coverage.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, basically. Yeah.
Just a little bit. So I got to tell you, man, thanks so much for coming on and hanging out. It was a blast. Your wealth of knowledge. I enjoyed your input and your view on things. It was a great time having you on the show. And of course, everybody, make sure you guys do head over to rmhc.org to check out the Ronald McDonald House so you can find one in your local area. If you're in the Buffalo community this weekend, they're doing the Walk for the Lives of Buffalo. If you can check that out on Saturday. All right. And of course, go Bills.
Make sure you leave a review and subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll see you next time. Leg out.